I wish we could say that we just failed to make progress, but it's actually even worse than that. On many counts in this process, COP28, we've actually gone backwards, the world. On the issue of fossil fuel, the language which is in the current text is worse than what we had in the last two COPs, right? So now there's not referring to fossil fuels, they're only talking about unabated coal. There's no more phase out or phase down, they're just talking about of fossil fuels, they're just talking about unabated coal, and then more language about exclusions and exceptions. We understand the geopolitical and political economy dynamics in these negotiations are complicated, hence the resulting text on fossil fuels, but it cannot be discounted that if there is one linchpin problem, it is the fact of the refusal to deliver or even talk about the delivery of climate finance, which makes the entire fossil fuel phase out important for us in the sense of making sure it's equitable and just, and that we're, especially for countries in the developing South, people in the developing South, that we're not left with no alternatives. Fossil fuel phase out is something we champion, but it also is a reality we know will be very complicated, will be very difficult to pull off without the delivery of climate finance, because not only do we ensure that the cost of phasing out is covered, we also have to ensure that the cost of developing the alternatives, which is 100% renewable energy, will be secured for our people. We phase out fossil fuel now without talking about climate finance and how to develop renewable energy systems. We're facing already extreme energy poverty in many places in the South, and the situation will get worse. So if we're talking about fossil fuel phase out without talking about finance, you can be sure it's just a sham. And the way that the US and other developed countries are styling themselves, as Mina said, as climate champions, makes us sick when we hear them, because it is so hypocritical that they're actually expanding their fossil fuel production and consumption, and it's so shameless that they're calling for ambition without talking about the delivery of their obligations to provide finance. It's their obligation, it's their fair share. We're not asking for help. It is part of their fair share. There's no progress in adaptation. No progress. And this is, again, because of climate finance. Even if we're talking about, even if we achieve collective goals on, agreeing on collective goals on adaptation, which we haven't, then this will also come to nothing without climate finance. So actually, they're very, very clever in refusing the one thing that will make all these different climate actions possible, to make these climate actions equitable and just, and also possible to make it succeed. We have one small thing, which is the gaveling of the loss and damage fund on the first day, and then everything went downhill from there. We're not overly happy about the design of the loss and damage fund, because it is going to be still housed in the World Bank, but we recognize that there's enough conditions in there to be the basis for our continuing to fight for a fund that will actually be truly useful for people of the Global South. But what we've seen in terms of pledges towards the fund, again, shameful. Shameful. It's consistent with their refusal to acknowledge common but differentiated responsibility and historical responsibility, because they refuse to give money because it's not because they're just simply being cheapskates, but because they know what it means. They know by giving money, it's an acknowledgement of their responsibility, and they refuse that. We have heard actual words uttered to the effect, there's no way we're going to acknowledge that this is some sort of reparations. No way. So they're throwing in peanuts. Some high points, positive points in the just transition package, but without discussion of climate finance, this is just going to be all rhetoric. The only climate finance flowing, quote unquote, on these just transition partnerships are mostly in the form of loans. And so it's going to end up just impoverishing us in the South even more. So this is a dark day. We probably are not very surprised because we've seen how the trends were going even before we reached Dubai, then in Dubai. But you know, when you know it's going to come and then it comes, and you're still as shocked and as enraged, even if you knew this was coming. This is how we feel today. But we're not going to stop fighting, and we will continue to fight, and not just in COP spaces, but in all of the spaces that we can, because we do this throughout the year in all of the spaces, in our cities and in towns and our communities, and you can be sure we will continue to fight in these global spaces. Thank you.